I think even the most diehard Raider fans, if you ask them to rank the head coaches in the AFC West in terms of power rankings, who's the best, who's the worst, everyone would probably put Antonio Pierce worst because of his lack of experience, and he's yet to prove that he is as good as we think he is. And I consider myself to be a level-headed realist in terms of being a Raider fan, and that's why I'm here to tell you that Antonio Pierce is nowhere near the worst coach in the AFC West. Now, I don't know if I've lost many Raider fans with that take already, but if there are people that aren't Raider fans that clicked on this video and see the emblem on my chest and immediately roll their eyes at the idea that I'm thinking that Antonio Pierce is a better coach than Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh, maybe stick around because you might learn something. And even though you're going to end up not agreeing with me, in the back of your mind, you know, this kid might be onto something. Let's talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, yes, he's a great coach. He was a great college coach. He took the 49ers to a Super Bowl. He was very close to winning. He has an unbelievable career winning percentage when he's in the National Football League. He made guys like Colin Kaepernick look like Joe Montana. I'm not denying that Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh aren't good coaches. And really quickly, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We're trying to get to 8,000 very, very soon here. We are halfway there, and we want to get to 10,000 before week 1, September 8th or whatever it was, when we play the Chargers in LA. We are going in there, and we want to be rough and rowdy, and we want to have a 10K next to the ALLaBorde Raiders channel name on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, please, please, please consider subscribing. Let's get it. What I am denying is the level of success in which coaches who were once good that have since left their jobs and taken extended time away from the game, a la John Gruden, and then come back to the National Football League to have that same success is few and far between. There are coaches like Bill Belichick or Andy Reid who have been coaching a certain team. They didn't get the job done. They moved to a different team immediately and became all-time great coaches. It is pretty rare, though, for coaches to get fired or walk away from a position, even when they had various levels of success, like a Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh, and then go to another team immediately and have that same success, let alone take years off like Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh did and come back and have the same amount of success. A lot of coaching success, a lot of player success is determined by the situation you are in. You have to be good at your job. Yes, there's no denying that. But there are rare people like a Mike Tomlin who can continue to win in spite of the adversity and in spite of the players and situation around him. And Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh have yet to prove that they can go win games in the National Football League when the circumstances go a little awry, like losing and Alex Smith, like Colin Kaepernick not playing as well as you might thought he would be after that Super Bowl, or like a Drew Brees retiring and the Saints being not very good when he left. Jim Harbaugh went to college football, which is a completely different game in terms of motivating your players, building your roster, winning championships, and I'm not knocking the guy for doing as such. There's no denying that the league and the game now has evolved, and it is much different than the league and the game was the last time he was coaching. And everybody that's predicting the Chargers to win 10, 11 games and make the playoffs, look at what Jim Harbaugh did to that roster. He completely gutted the offensive line and wide receiving core of that team. He's left Justin Herbert with little to no support, running back or wide receiver wise, besides a couple guys they drafted that you can cross your fingers and hope that they're good. Their defense is aging, and Jim Harbaugh knows he's in for the long haul. And maybe he's going to prove that he can construct a roster that can win games. And he came in with the 49ers, and he flipped them on their head and turned them into a powerhouse, the team that we know and love today. There's no denying, though, that it's going to take some time for Jim Harbaugh to get this thing rocking and rolling. You don't just jump back into the fray here and expect things to go well right away. However, I could totally understand people saying Jim Harbaugh is a better coach than Antonio Pierce because when he left the 49ers, he went to Michigan and won championships. Every single place he's gone, he's made that team better. Whether it was Stanford or San Francisco or Michigan, we'll see what he does with the Chargers. But for the time being, you're not just going to convince me that the Chargers are now a Super Bowl championship level team because Jim Harbaugh, who's been away from the game for 10 years, is going to come back and be the same person he once was. It's pretty rare for that to happen, and I'm going off of the history. Now we get to Sean Payton, who has a career record of 25-21 without Drew Brees. That was plenty of time for him to find a quarterback that's competent enough to get the Saints back to the playoffs. Drew Brees on the Saints, they were a playoff team. You took him off, and now they're nothing. It doesn't matter how good the coach was. And then Sean Payton takes a couple years off because he doesn't want to rebuild with the Saints. He signs with the Broncos. They trade for Russell Wilson. He's like, okay, I could win games right now. They go 7-9. They lose the game 70-20 to the Dolphins and have yet to beat the Raiders. And in that second game where we started Aiden O'Connell, it wasn't particularly close. We absolutely boat raced them. And he seems to be an ego guy. Jim Harbaugh's confident, but I don't think he's egotistical. I think his players like to play for him. Sean Payton seems like, yeah, I've won a Super Bowl. Remember that onside kick? I'm going to onside kick it again against the Raiders. And it didn't work. He's a showman. He's got a knack for the flair. And it seems as though, as of right now, he's completely out of touch with the modern-day National Football League. He reminds me a little bit of John Gruden in the aspect of it's his way or the highway. He left the game to be a broadcaster. He came back a lot faster than John Gruden. Obviously, John Gruden was waiting for that Raiders offer, and he finally got it. And John Gruden came in, and it took a while for him to learn how the modern-day game is played. He completely stripped down the roster to his studs and rebuilt it from the ground up, and it was starting to work before his inevitable firing. Sean Payton, who wanted to avoid a rebuild in New Orleans, then goes to Denver and thinks, I don't have to rebuild, and within halfway through his first year realizes Russ is terrible. I made a mistake. We have to rebuild. And if you think the Chargers offense is lacking weapons, do me a favor and go look at the Denver roster. That is one of the worst rosters in the league. If you think that Sean Payton is going to get a win this year against Antonio Pierce, you've got another thing coming. And let me ask you this question. If the Chargers and the Raiders roster isn't as far away as people like to say, even though we all think we have a significantly better roster, they have the better quarterback, I get it. We're going to play them week 1 in Los Angeles. Could be a home game for us. Why is the spread only 3 points? If they clearly have the advantage at quarterback and they clearly have the advantage at head coach, that's what we're being told, right? Why is the spread not that big? It's because Vegas is trying to tell you that not only do they think that the Raiders roster is way better than the Chargers roster, but the head coach of the Raiders could be something special. Same thing with Denver. When we play them twice this year, we're going to be favored in both those games. And now we get to Antonio Pierce. And I know everyone has seen the Travis Kelce clip of them talking about how the Raiders kicked their ass on Christmas Day, one of the best days of our entire lives. He said Antonio Pierce had those guys ready to brawl. On a moment's notice, you were getting your head taken off. It was the Raider way. We pushed them around. And I've been saying this since that game ended. I don't care what the score of that game was. It was not close. It was 20-7, and Patrick Mahomes had to make a crazy Mahomes-like play on 3rd and goal with 5 minutes to go to get that game to 20-14. If he doesn't make that play and they go 4 and out like they just did on the possession before, it would have been 20-7. And if you take away the 2 defensive touchdowns, we scored a touchdown and went for 2 and got it. So if we don't score those defensive touchdowns, we win the game 8-7. We held the Kansas City offense to 7 points through 3 3/4 quarters. That was all due to Antonio Pierce. And when Rich Bisaccia didn't get the job, and everyone was saying we made a mistake, and everyone was saying we need to hire Antonio Pierce because they didn't hire Rich Bisaccia. And I've made a video comparing AP to Rich. And I said, I love Rich. I'll be forever indebted to him. I hope he's a head coach one day. There is no comparison between Antonio Pierce and Rich Bisaccia because there were multiple games we played with Rich Bisaccia where we got destroyed. I think we lost to the Chiefs under Rich Bisaccia by 39 points. Again, not taking away anything that Rich did, but Antonio Pierce took over, and in every single game, we were competitive. The one game where we lost by multiple scores, it was against the Kansas City Chiefs, where we were up 14-0 in that game before the wheels kind of fell off and before the Chiefs decided to finally wake up. And what's more impressive about that Chiefs win is that it was the second game we played against them that year. So it wasn't like we came out and surprised them, because we were up 14-0 the first time we played them. We could have beaten the Dolphins. We could have beaten the Vikings. We beat the Jets. We could have beaten the Colts. Every team we played, we fought tooth and nail to the end. And that is not something that the Denver Broncos showed under Sean Payton. They have showed that with a little adversity, they'll just give up, which is why I firmly believe Antonio Pierce right now in the year 2024 is already a better head coach than Sean Payton. I'm not taking away what he did, and he was a big reason why the Saints became the Saints. But if we're talking about the modern day game and being able to motivate your players, working with the roster you have, no matter what is around you, no matter the circumstances, the Raiders are going to go out there and they're going to compete at the highest level. You will not see them lose a game 70-20. In fact, you will see them win a game in which they put up 63 points. You will see them win a game in which they play the Denver Broncos and Aiden O'Connell throws, how many touchdowns did he throw? 3? A rookie fourth rounder destroyed Jarrett Stidham. We pushed the Denver Broncos around in that last game. Did it look like Denver wanted to even be there? No. That's what I'm saying. They already had 1 foot in Cancun. We were like, nah, we're going to win this game. We don't care about the draft order. You can take Bo Nix. Thanks to us beating you, we'll set it for Brock Bowers. Antonio Pierce is a master motivator, but does not get enough credit for his schematics. It is no secret, and these are Rob Ryan's words, that as soon as Antonio Pierce took over, we were the #1 scoring defense in the National Football League. And now, all we need to do is trust that Antonio Pierce put the right guys around him in terms of Tom Telesco, in terms of Luke Getsy, and in terms of Patrick Graham to get the job done schematically. Antonio Pierce is not the worst head coach in the AFC West. He's at the very least third, and we'll see what Jim Harbaugh does this season. I'm giving Jim the benefit of the doubt because he's proven that he could win at any level pretty recently. Sean Payton hasn't won many games since Drew Brees retired, and I don't expect him to win many more this season. And let's see how long he lasts in a Denver Bronco uniform, because if they're terrible this season and Bo Nix isn't the guy, I think the Denver Broncos are going to be looking for another head coach very soon. And just to be clear, I expect the Raiders to win week 1 because Antonio Pierce knows the only other guy that the Raiders considered to hire instead of Antonio Pierce was Jim Harbaugh. And if you don't think that's going to be bulletin board material for Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. It's going to be a war. And I've never been more confident in the head coach we have going forward. I don't know about the quarterback. I don't know about the coordinators. But I know this for certain. Antonio Pierce is going to be the Raiders head coach for a long, long time. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. You get early access to the videos, exclusive content, your name at the end of the credits because you become an executive producer of the show. The Discord link is in the description also. That is completely free. Join in there. We're talking all the time. Please be sure to subscribe. It is free after all, no charge to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.